Televangelist Timothy Omotoso has officially left South Africa on a flight to Lagos, and he voluntarily opted to be deported following his rearrest on the 10th of May by immigration authorities in East London. Now, he arrived at the Tambo International Airport just after midday on a flight from King Shaka in Durban. He was then escorted by the domestic arrivals terminal to the international departures terminal, where he waited to board the plane. Omotoso is expected to arrive in Lagos at 8:30. The Department of Home Affairs has confirmed that he will not be allowed back in the country for the next 5 years. Omotoso was arrested in 2017 and faced a near-decade-long trial on charges of rape, racketeering and human trafficking. He was acquitted on the 32 charges on the 2nd of April this year and released from prison. All right, and for more on this now, we are joined by SABC News reporter Hasina Gori, and she's been covering that story for us today. Hasina, thank you so much for your time this evening. Now, you've been following the Timothy Omotoso matter, and this follows his arrest just last week. We saw hours of the morning in East London, and he was then declared an undesirable person. We saw that statement coming out from the Home Affairs Department, and hence why we find ourselves here. He's on his way back to Lagos.
And that's where we start today. We saw him landing from Durban, KwaZulu-Natal, King Shaka Airport on a 12 o'clock flight, where he then was whisked away very quickly. Compared to his usual charismatic, personality, but also the support that he gets. Very quiet today. Incognito, he was dressed very inconspicuous. Hoodie all the way up over his head. He had dark shades on. What he had also booked was a transfer. Because it was an SAA flight, he had a transit that then picked him up and whisked him straight from the arrivals at the domestic and drove him to the international departures. We got a glimpse of him at that point as he walked into security, where immigration did meet him, as you mentioned, told him he is an undesirable person. He was given that notice. Even that last week, when he was arrested in East London, when they brought the matter to the courts, it was thrown out and it was acquitted based on a technicality that they had overran the 48-hour rule, that he should have been brought in at 7 a.m. in the morning on Monday, and he was only brought into court, or only the matter was heard at least midday. So that went over the 48 hours, so that matter was then moved. But he was here on fraudulent or extended visas, that he did not have the proper or correct, legal status to be in South Africa. So he then volunteered to be deported, and that is what we saw happening today. He's on that flight currently. He's going to land in Lagos, Nigeria, at about 8:30 p.m. and he cannot, according to the Home Affairs, come into South Africa for the next 5 years. If he does want to, following the 5 years, there's a procedure that will happen, an application that he would then have to bring in through. And what we need to realize is that he also applied to the Home Affairs to have his legal status done. That was rejected, and that is why we see him leaving today.
Any word from Timothy Omotoso? I'm sure, there was a number of media houses and trying to get some sort of response. Did he say anything to reporters?
So we did try, asking him questions, asking him to return, asking if he had any comment on the NPA appeal, just any kind of comment if this was, him leaving forever. And he was very mum, kind of looked straight ahead and walked. But one of his aides did tell us that he would return in 2 weeks' time. Really interesting comments. Didn't want to really give us his name or who exactly he was, but there were people that were with him, that escorted him, that were from his own team, alongside with the police that were with him, but really not engaging with the media. And we were told by the police as well as AXA that we will not be allowed any engagement with him, that they wanted this to be done very swiftly without any attention being brought to it, but also they didn't want to disrupt the normal processes of the airport.
And Hasina, his acquittal in the Eastern Cape came as a shock to many South Africans. Also, the judge very scathing in that judgment. What happens now, particularly at a time where we've heard from the NPA and they are following a case here, and they are trying to get this acquittal reversed somewhat? What is the process that will follow now, particularly with the appeal that the NPA is working on?
So we tried to speak with the NPA at this stage. They haven't given us comment regarding this. What we understand is that on Friday they were brought in to the Justice Committee in Parliament, where they were, responding to specifically the Omotoso case and their dismal, character that took place. What they did ask was for that speedy acquittal process to begin, that appeal process of the acquittal to begin, that they will also be overseeing it. What we've heard, though, from the Home Affairs when we engage them on this specific topic is that this is a parallel process, that the appeal process can continue with or without Omotoso in the country if the NPA does win in the appeal and that there is an overturn of the acquittal and a reopening of the case or of that matter, then only an extradition process can begin. But at this stage, the Immigration Act was what he has been found to be in contravention of, and given that information, that is what the Home Affairs is working on. That is why we see him leaving the country. The criminal case that he's been part of, that is a similar parallel process, and that the NPA will have to respond on how they're going to go forward, but they can continue whether he's in the country or not.
All right, okay then, Hasina, thank you so much for that update. That's SABC News reporter Hasina Gori there giving us an update in terms of that matter. We've